the other stream to go live, and then we'll get started. All right. Good afternoon. This is Ifan from the Strategic Day Trader, and this is your market wrap for January 23rd, 2020. Qs up 0.32 and SPY up 0.14. We had a little bit of a gap down, some exploration lower, okay, and then a pretty strong recovery here. Now I said if we get underneath yesterday's low, I would like to see some more follow through, and then we can actually talk about the next setup for any kind of potential move. So we can watch here for a lower high, right? I think it was an important distinction to make coming into today that we weren't bearish, right? Because I think if you were maybe aggressively looking for that drop, maybe even starting to initiate a short on the market, it was probably not an easy time. Maybe you got a quick drop at the open, but you know, I've been waiting to see if we can actually form some kind of downtrend. Today's recovery, right, never really gave us that secondary entry, right? We've been watching for, I said, if we break underneath, we can look for the next base breakdown or some kind of sell setup. So we could be looking for a potential lower high here, but that's gonna be pretty aggressive, okay? Like even more aggressive, or maybe not more, but as aggressive as, you know, trying to look at today or this morning's move lower as some kind of start to a bearish move. Okay, so I do think we are still a couple setups away from really a nice shortable opportunity. We came into today bullish, outlined we needed a couple things to happen here before we really have a shortable opportunity. And those two things, we got one of them. We got the break underneath the lows, but we did not get any kind of additional entry. Okay, so going to be going into tomorrow a little bit more of a neutral bias. You know, I think even bullish is not a bad place to be just from the reaction here. I do think we're still a couple setups away from any kind of shortable opportunity. Okay, so neutral to bullish going into tomorrow. I don't really want to make a big deal about this bar that we got today because it's really not a big bar. Doesn't really change that much on the daily chart here. Okay, so we're still just not bearish. I think maybe some are looking for that next leg down just because it's been the same grind higher on the market that we've had for months now. But you know, if you're doing well at the same time, you know, then that's just fine. And for me, that's kind of how I feel. Like we are getting these small bars as long as the market is not making big moves. It makes it that much easier for us to focus on the gaps, right? To focus on what's on its own page. Market's not the focus. It's the individual names which are most likely to give us more volatility, right? Bigger moves on a percentage basis. So, you know, I'm kind of okay with this, especially even as we go deeper into earnings season. I don't really need an especially volatile market. But I do feel like, you know, just from the conversations, you know, discussed in the room that, you know, people are kind of eager for this market to kind of change here. And, you know, if you've been following the market wrap, you know, we've just been following this uptrend, seeing if we get any kind of acceleration or big gap down. And we just haven't been getting it. So we've been bullish, right? And so we got a little bit of a break of the uptrend, but immediately recovered. So, you know, that's why we were waiting for some kind of secondary entry. Okay, neutral to bullish going into tomorrow. All right, we'll see what we get. If we get some kind of break we can, underneath today's low, next setup, we can consider a shortable opportunity. Okay, so we need a couple things to happen going into tomorrow if we're going to initiate some kind of short-term bearish bias. Long-term bias, right, won't change until we get big acceleration one way or the to the upside, and then a big gap down. All right, so for those of you All right, who will be joining us next week, who are not in the room now because we do have an open house. There is a link included in the description for you to register for next week's open house. All right, so I just want to go over what you can expect. All right, for the more experienced traders who you may not be taking every one of the calls that are made, you know what you're looking for, right? And we have some traders in the room who basically just use it as a means to scan, right? Just for the idea generation. Okay, so what you're gonna see, okay, in the morning, in the pre-market first, is you're gonna see a gaps list and then a list of favorites. Okay, very similar to kind of this, what you see now. This is what I gave in the afternoon. Same thing. The morning will be the same thing. It'll be a list of the gap ups and the gap downs. All right, here, this is in the afternoon. We already know what the gaps are. So coming out of lunch, you'll see a list that says here are what looks good, higher and lower, and then generally what is the favorite. Okay, and if there's anything that's going to be called, it's generally going to be from the favorites list, right? Just like yesterday, we went over the NAVI. That was on the gaps list, also was a favorite. And then you saw the call, right? The call is going to look something like where we have the entry price and the stop price, right, already included there. So let me give you what today this looked like here. So like something like this, okay? Long over the first price, your stop is going to go under the second price. If it's a short, then it's going to be short underneath the first price, stop or above the other price. Okay, but when you come into the room next week, right, first thing you want to look for in the pre-market is the gaps list, the list of things, and then what are the favorites. So those are the ones that we're most likely going to be focused on, the ones that we're going to be looking for plays in. Okay, and then same thing in the afternoon. Okay, in the afternoon, going to be looking for a list of longs and shorts, and then usually if it's a favorite, I'll give you numbers on it. Okay, I'll tell you what the favorite is. If I'm going to be playing it, then you'll see it called, right? We have a box just for those calls as well, so they don't get lost in the chat. Okay, so for those of you thinking, well, I already know what I'm looking for. I don't necessarily need to be in a room for educational purposes or just to kind of learn a management. I know what my management is. I know what my setups are, right? We have a lot of traders like that who are just using it to be able to vet the ideas, right? And decide for yourself, is this going to be a play I'm going to take or not going to take, right? And so the benefit of all the contributions that are made from the other traders in the room, as well as the scanning from the moderators. If you're in the room, you already know we are constantly scanning and trying to find the best opportunities out there. So if you come into the room next week, you're going to know what lists to look for. They're also going to be highlighted in a blue font, so that'll help them stand out as well, to look for those lists and also pay attention to which one are the favorites, right? Like, I got a question even yesterday, like how did I find the NAVI? And so some people I know are still getting kind of acclimated to the room. It was a relatively newer member, right? And so, that's the thing. If you're there in the pre-market before the open, you're already told what the favorites are, right? That way when it comes up and you see it being called to be played, that you already know what the chart looks like and what to expect. Okay. All right. So, hopefully some of you have been considering if the room is right for you. Next week is the perfect opportunity to check it out, see if, it fits you, if it's going to add value to your trading, right? So it's going to be a kind of an opportunity for you to check it out. So that'll be next week, Monday through Friday. All right. And so when you come in tomorrow, if you've been watching the last couple videos, you'll know how to use the room for scanning purpose. You'll also know how to follow along on the calls. So you'll be ready to go. You'll be ready to maximize your free week next week. Okay. All right, that's gonna do it for today's market wrap. Hope you did well today. We'll be back at it tomorrow to close out the week. Okay, and then hopefully some of you, I'll be able to chat with you on Monday. All right, have a good evening.